All this is quite good, yeah.
Excuse me?
Yeah, you just move a bit.
On the what? On the height. Oh, do you guys believe you're the greatest? What have you been reading?
Let's look at your hand.
I haven't seen the height. They say we're the greatest rock and roll band in the world. Let's see.
Take them out and shoot them. That is disgraceful. That's the sort of thing when you get into a, you know, when you get into a band and you're 16, the idea that you'd be called the greatest rock and roll band in the world just makes you sick. It really, really does.
Guess we really fucked up.
Well, they're not calling Dollar the greatest rock and roll band in the world, or whoever is the disco band at the moment. It's something not to be taken at all seriously. When you join a rock and roll band, you want to be a great one. And being great, that doesn't mean, you know, selling records or tickets to your shows. Something else. You don't quite know what it is. We're not very happy about U2 really at the moment. I mean, we're not so happy with what we've done over the last 10 years. We feel we have a lot to do in the next 10 years. So it's a great compliment that people are throwing at us. But, you know, there are moments when you're on a stage, or there are moments in your music when you feel it's great. But it's not a constant thing. You know, so that's why we take it, you know, it's great that some people feel that way about it, but we don't take it so seriously.
Bono, is there any chance you think you could ever become too rich, too famous? Would that concern you?
Too rich, that's another bitch, yeah.
Money. Well, what money does give you, which is something that we value, is gives you freedom. Gives you freedom to...
Cars, houses in the south of France, Lear jets, all that. As well as freedom.
As well as freedom. Also gives you, you know, you can control to an extent what you do. You know, a small band first gets a deal, they're just pushed around. At this stage, we pretty much do what we want, which is why, in fact, we're touring Australia and New Zealand, because it's mostly because we want to be here, we want to play these shows. Apart from those two things, I mean, you can pretty much keep it. And then, as Bono said, artistically, we're still searching. We still haven't done what we think we can do.
It's a horrible pain to talk about money because so many people don't have it. I always thought that the thing about being successful and having some hard cash was that you didn't have to think about it, and therefore talk about it.
Bonnie had 3 shows cancelled in Sydney because of the voice, the throat and health problems of some sort. What's the situation there now?
No problem. I'm telling you, I've seen the best throat specialist in the South Pacific. It's fine, it really is. It's just you've got some really weird germs down here. And really psychedelic shit. And I thought I was going to die there for a few days. But it was one of these germs that couldn't make up its mind what it wanted to be, you know, flu, a brain tumor, you know, smallpox. I don't know, I just felt like everything. And I just lost my voice. I just hadn't got a voice, or else I would have done those shows in Sydney. It's never happened before. But it certainly won't stop us playing these concerts. We've come too far and waited too long. So.
Have you got any special memories of the 1984 tour of New Zealand?
I just remember coming here and thinking it was just like Ireland. I mean, it really is. It's incredible, the similarity.
Same colour green everywhere.
Do you ever find it difficult to balance, you know, your beliefs and your ideals with, if you like, rock and roll reality?
All the time.
That's what makes it fun. It is a barrel of contradictions, and
I think Sam
still
Shepard
trying
said
to
that.
figure it out.
He's like a favourite playwright of mine. He said that if you ever find yourself right smack in the middle of a contradiction, it's not a bad place to be. It's not boring there, that's for sure. That's what the song God Part 2 is about, really. About the contradiction of being in a rock and roll band, being successful, writing songs about people sometimes who are not having any success, writing about the lack of success you see around you, and essentially biting the hand that feeds. But we continue to bite and feed. So,
Bono, you've been together, the band's been together for 11 years. Do you sometimes get the feeling that you've been captured by the publicist, that you're on a treadmill, that sort of thing?
nope, never on a treadmill. That's again one of the great things about, especially right now, about being in U2 is you just don't do anything you don't want to do. And I mean, it is a great feeling. And occasionally things run away, run away with you. There are moments of madness on tour. You maybe agree to do too much, or there's a lot of hype about, because people are trying to sell your records, which after all is what you're asking them to do. And comparatively, we don't sell half as many records as other artists that people might see as our contemporaries. But there's people out there that are trying to sell records, they're trying to sell a movie, they're trying to sell shows, so they have to promote, and at times then you're maybe compromised. But that's kind of part of rock and roll, and you shouldn't really get into rock and roll if you're shy that way.
You said you weren't that happy with what you've been doing over the last few years. Why? And what do you want?
Have you got about 6 hours?
Well, we always wanted to be a country and western band. Something went awfully wrong.
Bono, the book Unforgettable Fire, was it fair?
Yeah, as most Irishmen say when in a corner, it's a matter of opinion. It's really hard when people write about you, particularly your past. The early part of the book is well written, a bit about our families and growing up, and that's what Eamon Dunphy was trying to do, was to set us in context in the community and the city that we grew out of. As the book went past sort of halfway stage, I think maybe it was not as interesting. That's my own opinion.
Do you wish you'd had more, editorial control over it?
No. I think, to be fair to Eamon, he had no editor, and he was being pushed around by his own, publisher to hurry up and the like. It was all done on the run, and you can't really control that to that extent. You might like to, you can't.
There's a quote here from in the Blur from T-Bone Burnett. U2 is what church should be. How big a role is the church in your lives?
Which
Zero.
Yeah, which church are you talking about?
Your own personal churches.
I don't actually belong to a church myself. I've always found that been uncomfortable in what most people would call the church. I'd like to think it was part of a bigger, wider church. If you mean, if you're talking about faith and do we have any, that's something that's very private and personal, and I actually don't trust people or talk about it too loudly, so I wouldn't like to become...
The closest we get to church are the concerts themselves.
It just seems from
Amen.
It just seems from this side of the world that the controversy that's always going on in Ireland, you're either one side or the other. For a rock and roll band to sit right in the middle, is that...
Well, what's going on in Ireland is about religion, which is another thing again. It's like being a supporter of a football team, as far as I'm concerned.
All religion has ever done in our country is divide people. It's torn the country in two. We're sick of it, don't feel a part of it. And I don't think that people's faith has anything to do with religion. Religion has been a scourge on the earth.
Only Jews in Dublin I mean, it's your hometown, it's where you grew up. What are your old friends? Do you still keep in touch with them, or is there sort of a gap now between your roots and your fame?
It's a difficult question because, you know, when you're in a rock and roll band, sometimes you try and fool yourself that as you become more successful, that things don't change and that you're still normal. When the facts of the matter are that you're not. Because being in a rock and roll circle or circus is not normal.
You were never normal.
And I was never normal. But like yeah, I mean it's difficult. You have to fight to maintain relationships and things like that.
Do you have big flash houses, big flash cars?
Oh yeah, Lear jets, shit like that. You know, Guinness used to be the biggest export in Ireland. Things change.
Can you tell us a little bit about One Tree Hill? What was the motivation, where that song came from, what it's about?
Again, you know, it's hard to have sex in public. It's also hard to talk about things. Actually, it's kind of, depending on your point of view. The One Tree Hill, we were there last night. Actually, 4 of us just got up there. But it was the first night we came into New Zealand. We went. I actually couldn't sleep, and I met some people who also couldn't sleep, who were hanging in the hotel, and they took me up to One Tree Hill. So I associated the first night, and also it's the first conversation I had with Greg Carroll. It was about One Tree Hill and what it, you know, was a symbol of originally for the Maori people and the like. And it's now a song.
Next year the government is hosting a birthday celebration here for 150 years of British colonisation. Can you see any parallels between the Māori experience and the Irish experience?
They're having a festival to celebrate British colonialisation.
150 years.
Now that's weird. Imagine celebrating that. Well, it wouldn't be a great party to be in at our country. People, you know, colonisation. It's not something or whatever. But it's not the case in Ireland. We lived under British. We've been sort of fighting with the British for hundreds of years. Mind you, if we weren't fighting with them, we'd probably be fighting with themselves. We're just that kind of people. I'm sure there are some similarities between the indigenous people of New Zealand and the indigenous people of Ireland, if you want to make that comparison. I don't know enough about the Maori situation to go further than that. I wouldn't. I'd like to. Yes, gentlemen.
The journalist I was with had to go catch a plane, and he had a question written down for you. Could you read it out?
Oh.
It's about Irish unemployed.
He had to catch the plane, but he gave the message to you. Very cool. Edge.
Just an exam.
You said recently that after you'd... Shit, he can't spell. He's a typical journalist. After your year in Dublin, you will be looking at new musical directions. With the huge unemployment leading to massive emigration of Irish youth to Western Europe and the USA. What about, no mention here of New Zealand, Australia. Do you see Irish spirituality being exported, this is heavy shit, influencing Europe as the Irish monks did in the 6th or 7th centuries? Will this tragedy of exile for Irish youth, as reflected in your, will it be reflected in your new musical direction?
Quite probably.
This is the sort of guy you should sing in a rock and roll band. Can't spell, doesn't know what he's on about.
Do you get lots of those questions, those sort of things, those sort of deep, pretentious questions?
We get asked a lot about the summit meetings. You know, you know what we're doing about famine and employment in Ireland, what we're doing about education, all that. And
price war.
Yeah, it's tough, you know, organising all those things, solving all the world problems. But we have the weekends to deal with those things, and we play gigs during the week. Yeah, they get tiring, to be honest. And sometimes people forget that we're basically a rock and roll band, and
What took you so long to get back to New Zealand?
it's a long way.
No, we originally planned to open the Joshua Tree tour here, actually in Auckland. That was always the plan. But the album ran over schedule, and then we lost. First we lost New Zealand, then we lost Australia, and then we nearly lost America because I wanted to stop the album being released at all. But it went ahead, and then towards the end we were going to end the tour here, and we were worn out, not very good form, and that would have been going through the motions, and you know, that would have been playing for cash, and we weren't ready to do that. So we said we'll wait until we feel ready and feel right.
When do you plan to start recording another album?
We've been writing songs, you know, we don't stop writing, and
Might do the making of that.
oh. Have you got another question?
What challenges are left for you two?
Pardon?
What challenges are left for you two, given your performance history, recording history? I mean, what is there left to do?
Oh, there's so much left to do. That's the thing, you know, if your goal is to be number one, if your goal is to sell out concerts and then you achieve your goal, well then there is nothing left. But that was never our goal. We still, I suppose, to get back to the original question, we want to be a great, vital rock and roll band of our time. We don't feel we are, but that's something by that, you know, it just means it's a musical thing. There's songs we hear in our head, which we're at this stage not really expert enough to get down, but we're getting more expert. And that, first of all, it was just a struggle for you two to stay in time, just to be up on a stage and keep in time and just stick it together. And then, you know, now we've spent the last 10 years learning to, you know, finding out how to be in U2. And we spend the next 10 years seeing what U2 can do.
So you find it ironic that you spent 10 years being U2, and then a lot of successes come with you delving back into American music with Rattle and Hum and Everlasting Love. And
that's a good question. But it's actually part of the answer to the second last question. Just because you sell, you know, platinum, and because people are calling you a great rock and roll group, doesn't, as I say, mean that you are one. And you have to sometimes look back. To work on the future, you sometimes have to look back, and you have to admit that there's areas of music that you don't know enough about or that you could learn from. Like, we have B.B. King on the road because we want to learn from him, and we have learned a great deal from him. We work with Bob Dylan because we can learn a great deal from him. That's part of it, you know. You don't stop being a fan just because you're in a big band. We're still fans of rock and roll. There's so much to learn. There's 25 years of rock and roll for us to plunder.
would you do a Beatles cover?
We did a Beatles cover.
Yeah.
Go to the back of the class. Pardon?
Who else would you like to work with in the future?
Willie Nelson.
Johnny Cash.
Johnny Cash.
Actually, maybe we should bring BB in now, because I think he might be.
Yeah, we got
here.
BB's actually agreed to come down, which is really good. There's a lot of people out there that we can learn from, a lot of heroes, you know, they're in different fields, you know. Even Miles Davis, you know, you can learn from him, just listen to his music.
Do you approach them or do they approach you?
I approached Miles Davis. I went to see him play and I went to meet him backstage. I really enjoyed that experience. So question.